video. In this one, it's going to be a hurricane outlook and discussion. The main topic is going to be about the severe weather for the Northeast tomorrow. That's probably my first thing I want to cover, and then get into the tropics. And I'm really sure, and a lot of people or other people are talking about this, that the tropics are about to get active. And I think the it's really going to be a lot in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, what I have gathered. And there's still a chance for the A name storm tomorrow. I think tomorrow is the last chance for Invest 90L to become Tropical Storm Arthur. um, why it never became a tropical storm today and why it really hasn't really looked good on satellite or anything is because of the wind shear. It has been driving this storm absolutely crazy, and we're going to be getting into that. So now let's take a look at the severe weather before we look into the tropics. So tomorrow's severe weather, if you guys are in the Northeast, probably going to be a slight risk anywhere in the I-95 corridor, anywhere across the East Coast. Honestly, if you guys are in New York, just a mile or two north of New York, you guys are in the slight risk. Eastern Pennsylvania, eastern southern Pennsylvania, parts of central Pennsylvania, all in that slight risk. Even upstate New York, upstate New Jersey, like Easton, Sussex, the Poconos are in this. Boston, you guys are right on the line of it with the slight risk. Massachusetts, most of it. Connecticut, the northern part, northern and western. So you guys are all in the slight risk, and that is for about 20,000 people in it. Colorado's, oh yeah, and there's another slight risk back in Oklahoma, Kansas City, Bismarck, and Utah. Or yeah, Utah. So there's two slight risks, and then we got the marginal, pretty much all of Pennsylvania, all of the East Coast, everywhere around the outside. And I think this is going to be mainly a damaging wind threat with some pea size to penny size hail. I don't think there's a big ice threat. I think there's just a big wind threat out of this. So now let's take a look at the wind. And like I said, there's a 15% chance in the slight risk, and then in the marginal, a 5%, and then in the hail, they actually upped this to a 5%, pretty much in the slight risk area and a little bit outside of that slight risk. So there's a chance for that hail. If we take a look at the models here on this, if we take a look at the NAM model here, let's move that to the Northeast. Let's get 18Z. So if we take a look at that, you could tell there are already storms near the Great Lakes, some damaging winds, maybe some large hail, depending how some of these storms are as of right now tonight. So let's take a look in the 10 o'clock. There's some showers and thunderstorms in eastern Pennsylvania. But if we just take throughout the middle of the night, nothing. Tomorrow in the morning, nothing. And then you can tell we do get a batch of thunderstorms that moves through Ohio. And then once it enters Pennsylvania, you see some darker colors starting to shade in. And then there's some more of a linear line trying to develop by 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Take this to 2. There's some nice thunderstorms here with some damaging winds and maybe some hail. I'm very curious how this is all going to play out with severe weather. And that really gets robust here around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, 4 p.m. Definitely in that northern Pennsylvania, in that slight risk. There is going to be somewhere we're going to have 70-mile-an-hour winds, probably a really nice severe weather outbreak here with some damaging winds. Take that into there, especially into 6 o'clock. The line moves in, maybe weakens a bit on the southern side, or actually I strengthen on the southern side, weakens on the northern side. And that goes into New York City here, Long Island, into New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware even gets a nice blob. And then you can see whatever this storm off the East Coast, when it combines pretty much with the cold front, if it's Tropical Storm Arthur, the remnants, whatever it is, it moves by And then that is out. And then the Northeast pretty much in the clear here. So we take a look at the her model, another nice model here. And we look at this in 48. So you can tell some showers and thunderstorms definitely develops a little later, 6, 7 o'clock. This is going to be once again a line, and then that moves on, and whatever this storm off the East Coast really won't bring any impacts here for the Northeast, because then there's a high pressure and a heat wave that I would like to talk about tomorrow or Saturday. So if we take a look here, um, let's take a look at. No. I want to look at some of the parameters. So let's take a look at the nail model for the convection and some of these things here. So most unstable cape and shear for the Northeast. I don't know why it's for the Midwest. You can tell right here, not too much. You know, there's definitely some in that cold front that's going to definitely develop, especially where that slight risk is for that unsettle here. Let's take a look at the 18Z because it goes out further. And you can definitely tell there is some good most unstable cape and shear into the medium range, especially in the northern parts of Pennsylvania, where I think the best chances for that damaging wind is. I think the further north of that slight risk, like northern Pennsylvania, right there is going to be absolutely bamboozled. Someone's going to get 70-mile-an-hour winds. Supercell composite, it is there, especially into the Northeast. I think there is possible for some supercell activity. And then significant tornado perimeter is actually has gotten a little higher in the latest few runs. Nothing really. I mean, I think if anything, there's a chance for a tornado or two. Just depends how tomorrow's setup all plays out. So that's pretty much it with the severe weather. So now I'm going to like to take this into the tropics. So if we take a look at the National Hurricane Center here, we have two areas of interest. One off the southeast coast, and I'll like to read this. An elongated of low pressure offshore of the southeast U.S. coast continues to produce disorganized showers and thunderstorms despite the stronger upper level winds. Some gradual development is possible while the system moves northward by the weekend. The system is forecast to merge with a front, the Western Atlantic. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall is forecasted to continue portions of the Florida. Why is that the tail end of this? And I do think the shear is definitely a huge thing, like I said. But with a cold front, it might actually help the storm to develop a little bit tomorrow. So I think tomorrow's your last best chance if you want to see Invest 90L to become a tropical storm. But another area of concern is this 40%. I'm going to read this. As of 8 p.m., a broad area of low pressure is forecasted to move over the southwestern Gulf of Mexico late this weekend to early next week. Environment conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the middle part of next week, while it moves slowly westward or west northwestward. 48 hours, nothing. One thing can happen here is the Eastern Pacific. We actually do have an area of low pressure, and there's a low chance of a storm that could try to pretty much move in this direction and they get spun up into here, and this could be our storm up here. There's some models showing that, or this doesn't really become anything, and this still does surge up, but it just helps to influence this area with a spin, and an area of low pressure develops. So there's two areas that we have to really take a look at. So if we take a look at the satellite imagery of 90L here, what am I seeing? First off, crazy amount of wind shear, 40 to 50 knots right there. As of tonight, this looks absolutely unhealthy. This looks very gross of a storm in the weather world. Very broad area of low pressure here off Georgia, actually just off the South Carolina's coast. how do I know there's wind shears? Because of these thunderstorms. And I even looked at the radar earlier today with some of these showers and thunderstorms that was trying to develop around this low. And I mean, it was really nasty. And how, I mean, there's a nice area of circulation here, really present just off the southeast coast. But there is nothing but wind shear. Whatever storms are trying to develop, I mean, it is getting spun through this low and really not becoming anything. And this convection fires up and then weakens. So very unhealthy look to the storm right now, and it's honestly lowering my confidence for 90L to become something. But you never know. I've seen this where I saw it the night before, and then all of a sudden you wake up and this thing actually has a chance, and the National Hurricane Center is popping it up there. But this still has some time before it enters. I mean, it still has time in the Gulf Stream. The low is about here, and this low still has all this to do. So it has into tomorrow night, maybe Saturday morning to develop. And I think tomorrow it has the best chance to develop. So no hope, all hope ain't gone yet. But the hope is kind of lessening for Tropical Storm Arthur out of the East Coast. And I kind of expected that to have a struggle with that wind shear that I was seeing a few days ago, where it never weakens. The wind shear has been pretty dominant with some of these waves this year in the Caribbean stuff. I won't even lie there. Yeah, I mean, like this, I mean, like I said, there is 50 knots of wind shear where this low is currently right now. 50 knots. That's like 60-mile-an-hour wind shear just getting thrown into this. And I mean, there's a lot less wind shear on the southern side, but still. And I'm very curious how this is going to play out, because maybe this 10 and 20 does get into this low. And I mean, if it does, then it has a chance tomorrow. But like I said, the chances are lowering which with each hour, I think. I mean, why do I think there is that chance tomorrow? Is because if we look closely, see where that -5 line is? That's been inching its way further and further off the East Coast. And this blue is most likely going to try and continue to move this way, as we're going to get a cold front tomorrow, and this shear is going to try and lessen near there. So I think tomorrow is your best chance for Tropical Storm Arthur. In the Gulf of Mexico, actually, right now, really, there is some wind shear, but even the wind shear near the New Orleans are dropping by like -20. So that's good signs if a tropical storm wants to form. Bay, Campeche, nothing there. Caribbean, too, lessening with wind shear by 5 to 10 knots, even near the Puerto Rico area. Central Atlantic dropping in wind shear. So there is a lot of wind shear dying. And I think there is going to be a tropical storm any day now, just waiting to erupt. So now done with all this yapping about the satellite imagery and the wind shear. Now let's take a look at the models. What does the model see out of the storm? So the storm with the GFS here. I mean, by 8 a.m., the GFS has a 1,007 low pressure, probably becoming a tropical storm. That's like the best chance for tomorrow. This area low weekends, or this just tries and spins up. The GFS has a tropical depression or a tropical storm tomorrow morning. That moves on, and then that gets, like I said, with that severe weather across the Northeast, that's just going to combine with this and move out. Then there's that high pressure. The heat wave begins. I know some people have been talking about it here in this one today. But if we take a look at the Western Gulf, the Atlantic, I mean, there's a big area of uncertainty out of this. There's going to be some rotation. Maybe some moisture comes up from Central America, goes into the Bay Campeche. We get a little spin, not that much wind shear. and boom, we do get maybe a storm. And I would like to watch out here. I don't think anyone's really been watching, but there is a wave gonna combine with the fronts. And maybe just if the environment's good enough, there's a little wave that moves into the Atlantic, maybe tries and develops. I don't know. Sometimes that stuff gets caught off. I mean, on the latest run, as it hitting South Carolina right there, boom. But that tropical storm in the Bacon Peachy becomes a tropical storm, big spin, makes landfall as a 998 in Mexico. Brings some heavy rainfall into Texas, some showers and thunderstorms, another cold front coming. But then we get even more moisture that comes off South America. This becomes a tropical storm in the next, I would say, before June 20th or just at June 20th. This becomes a tropical storm, goes into the Gulf, becomes a actual hurricane, and then becomes a Cat 2 possibility hurricane, rides the coast, and it makes landfall in the Texas and Mexico border. And that's been showing. I won't even lie. That has been showing in runs of another area of low pressure. And then after that, there's even more moisture in the Caribbean. So that's why I made this title as Tropics Are About to Get Active, because there is big signs of the tropics going to be getting very busy here. So we take a look at the NABGEM, the Canadian. We get a piece actually of a tropical storm that develops in the next 72 hours here. I do not believe in that. I don't think that's going to happen. Goes in the Bay. Campeche becomes a tropical storm and actually makes landfall much more north as a strong tropical storm, maybe even a low end hurricane in Mexico. Brings some big impacts, and then we get another tropical storm that comes in the Gulf of Mexico. That second piece of energy that's been showing on the GFS, and we get our another tropical storm. So, like I said, the tropics are getting active, and I think at least one storm is going to develop out of this, but it tells you if the environment is fine. And remember, this is the area where it's conducive in June and July. And right now, it's just been the only issue has been the dry air and the wind shear. The waters are perfectly fine here because I'm about to actually go into the waters here and show you. And Euro's been confident on a tropical storm forming in the Mexico and becoming 1,000 millibars, 999. So a 50, 60 mile an hour tropical storm into Mexico. And then after that, another piece of energy that the same air, that second piece, comes into the Bay Campeche and maybe develops into something. So, and then look at all this other moisture back in the Atlantic, um, near the islands of the Western Antilles. I mean, a lot of moisture. So there's just a lot of unsettled weather going into later June that I have been seeing on the models. All right. So now let's take a look at the water temperatures. How does the water temperatures look? So the water temperatures are historic here. In the Gulf of Mexico, pretty much almost all of the Gulf of Mexico running above 80 degrees. All of it. All right. We have 30 degrees Celsius all in the Bay Campeche. So that would, I mean, those storms just that area of unsettle, even in the Caribbean, 31, 30 degrees Celsius, where these storms are going to be having the best chances, are going to be in one of the warmest waters in the best ocean heat content. Right now, where this storm 90L sits, is just off the Gulf Stream. But as of tomorrow, it's going to get into the peak of the Gulf Stream, and you still got Gulf Stream moisture all the way up to the northeast here. So there's, I mean, if it stays in here, the chances stay high. But I've watched this waters really warm in the last few weeks here. So if we look at the last 7 days, Western Atlantic, apparently to this, the waters have cooled. And I mean, yeah, near Florida it has cooled just a bit, but majority of the areas have really, really warmed. The tropical Atlantic is actually been cooling down a bit. I've noticed, and that's because of the dry air. Has really been sitting on the Western Atlantic. Still very warm, and I think these are going to easily bounce right back. But there is some cooling that I like to talk about here, especially in the central. But then you got these really warm waters up to 5 degrees Celsius. So we're going to have to see how this all plays into the season. So that's going to wrap it up, you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below and any concerns. But we are going to be back here tomorrow morning on 90L if this will become a tropical storm. Have a great night.